hey, Tony.
Hey,
And
Tony.
like, turns around. He's all fucked
Tony.
up. Hey, Tony.
Hey, Tony. Anyway, yeah, you were talking about
Yeah.
Al Pacino's mid-career after the heights of the 70s.
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, this is after Cruising, which I love that movie. I think it's very underrated. I wish there was an extended cut by Friedkin because I think that's one of his best movies. I think it's underrated, and Pacino's performance in it is really, really powerful. But yeah, he this is the backside, man, and like it hit at the right time, I think, for him.
Well, I think he still had some good performances left until the 90s at least.
Oh, of
Like
course.
Santa
No,
Ana
yeah,
Woman
even like Heat, in '95.
Right, The Insider.
The Insider. Yeah. There you have those like Pacino movies of the 90s where you're just like, and even Carlito's Way.
Yeah,
De Palma's
definitely.
Carlito's Way is such a moving film, man. But yeah, like I believe his performance in Scarface. I think that he contains watching this movie, I can see why this is like a pinnacle film for Latinos because it feels like a certain generation of men modeled themselves after Tony Montana. Because Tony Montana like lives by a code. He has honor. Right. He has that quote unquote Latin machismo.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a certain generation like modeled themselves after him.
The funny thing is that the first scene, they ask him, "How'd you learn how to speak English?" What does he say?
Oh, the movies.
Humphrey Bogart,
James Cagney,
and then you could make the case that he learned how to be a man from watching these movies.
American movies, yeah.
Right. It's a very
American men.
Yeah, more than Cuban, he's a very American type of gangster.
Exactly. Yeah.
He's very
It's weird, yeah.
He's like sort of charming and funny.
Yeah.
But also extremely dangerous if you cross him.
Yeah.
Exactly like Bogart and more Cagney was.
Cagney. Yeah. He's more of a Cagney, I think, in this one.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
He's just a very powerful figure, even though, like James Cagney, they were small in size.
Yeah.
They weren't very tall or big, but they could physically impose themselves basically on just terms of their personality.
Yeah, when they enter a room that's very demanding.
Right.
You can feel them there. Yeah. I don't know. This movie, I feel like what it did, I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I told somebody, like, this movie is probably like the single most important Latino movie ever made, not starring a Latino and not directed by a Latino or even written by a Latino. But it's important. Like, this is like, what's that meme? This, the starter kit. Like, this is like, I don't know. I feel like this movie has affected the Latino community in so many ways that it's really hard to like explain it to like anybody outside the Latino community. I don't know, but
yeah,
and same thing with the hip hop culture. This movie is
Definitely.
like everything, man. Like, it feels like nowadays when you ask people what their favorite movies are, I mean, hopefully they say Scarface, but if you ask like men of a certain age, they'd probably be like Goodfellas, Scarface. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's more of I feel like never mind. But yeah, you're right that this is a very important movie culturally and for even, I guess, cinephiles.
Yeah.
It's like one of those first movies you start with when you start getting deeper into film.
Yeah, I agree. This is like one of those where you watch and you're like, you go, oh man, like a movie can be made like this. That's like action-y, but then it's of course, that shootout scene at the end. I would watch that scene over and over again. I remember when I finally got the DVD, just because of the way it's like filmed. It's like beautifully shot and cut together. And, but yeah, it's just one of those movies where you start to look at movies differently, I think, where you start to go, oh man, this is like a drama action, and they can be both things at the same time and be a success.
Right. Yeah, it just shows you different kind of movie making that you don't usually see in mainstream movies. No. It's funny, like the things like we just were talking about, we usually watch these kind of movies on TV. Like I remember watching Fargo, Reservoir Dogs, Boogie Nights, Y Tu Mamá También.
Yeah.
As like 12 and 13 years old.
Yeah, how weird.
My head exploding.
Yeah.
Because those movies are so different. And I get to saw those movies because they were, for some reason, airing uncensored at 6 o'clock on a weeknight.
Wow.
And Evil Dead, too. completely uncensored on a Saturday on AMC.
Yeah,
I was
remember
freaked
that.
out.
I remember that.
It's because like you don't see movies like you didn't think movies like that were possible, but it turns out they are.
No, yeah. It's weird. It's like a switch goes off in your head.
Yeah,
And you're like, whoa.
and you're like, yeah, well, or can I get more of this? Turns into an addiction in some way for some people.
Yeah, it leads one thing leads to another. It's strange, but like, no, it's funny you bring that up. Watching those type of movies on cable, and like coming across them, I almost feel like that's a better way to encounter movies than rather just flipping through like Amazon or Netflix,
Right?
Where you just turn it on the TV and you go like, oh, what's this? You know what I mean? And next thing you know, you're obsessed with Quentin Tarantino or something.
Right. Like, I mean, the first time you watch it's like halfway through.
Yeah.
You're like, oh.
Yeah, you're like, how did we get here? You're
Yeah.
Like for Scarface, for me, it's just, this movie means like a lot to just, I don't know. It's about a Cuban guy, right? It's about a Cuban refugee. But I mean, like, it just speaks volume to like Mexicans. Like the Mexicans and the Hispanics I grew up with, like, we would just quote this movie like crazy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's really about, for any immigrant, it's about the American dream.
Exactly.
Right?
And it's such a strange like immigrant story, I feel like, because it's at a time where it's like Reagan, right? He's in office.
Well, I remember
right?
In the first scene, you see a picture of Jimmy Carter.
Carter, right?
Yeah. Since 1980 to like 1982, maybe.
Yeah, right.
The time frame.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So
it's a bit of both.
Right. Yeah, and it feels like the country at that time, from what I understood, was coming out of like, it's post-Vietnam, it's post-disco era. The country's kind of economically in a slump, and Reagan's on the way. And what better movie to like embody the 80s of Reaganism than like the story of excess, like Scarface, which is a capitalistic movie. It's just like, this movie is like America in a time capsule. I don't know how to describe it. And the fact that it's an immigrant story, which like, I know the Reagan party was like coming down hard on immigration, at that time. And we were having like another wave of like this strange conservatism, like run through the country. The fact that like a Cuban rises from the slums, right, comes over here on a quote unquote banana boat, and he becomes a drug lord all of a sudden. It's just kind of spooky, man, how this movie like kind of like influenced culture. Specifically, like Miami culture,
Yeah, and it's funny too that they miss the lesson of the movie, if there is one. Is that anytime you see Tony achieve anything that's big and I don't know, not his career, but like maybe he takes over Frank's empire.
Yeah,
you just see him sitting by himself, looking sad.
And, that's funny you bring that up, man, because I was thinking about that too, about how like he has all these things, but yet he's still lonely and sad.
Right.
And like, it feels like movies like this, we always take away the bad parts. Whereas in like, this is supposed to be a warning, right? Like we talked about it last week with like Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
How we start to idolize like Jordan Belfort and stuff. And it's kind of like disturbing that we start to idolize these guys where it's like a warning sign,
Definitely. Like, people use that as a constant criticism of Scorsese, is that he glamorizes gangsters.
Yeah.
Or like even in Fight Club, you're glamorizing Brad Pitt and Edward Norton. The thing is that all of these movies are really comedies, and also they're not about what people think they're about. They're often a lesson against capitalism or toxic masculinity.
It's usually a critique. Yeah.
But if you want to tell that story, you have to not glamorize, but you have to show why this is attractive to people.
That's true.
Why it takes them in, why they feel powerful.
Yeah.
When they, I don't know, do a drug deal or shoot somebody.
Yeah.
Or like, I mean, it's meant to scare you away, if anything. I don't think people have this fantasy of going out like Tony, right? And like guns blazing with the machine gun, taking everybody out, dying in his mansion. But the thing is, before that, or
the fact he owns a tiger.
Right, or a
like
tiger.
That like, that's crazy, man. And I think Mike Tyson had referenced like, he got a tiger because of that. It's like,
I mean, you hear about all kinds of Mexican narcos owning tigers, lions, bears, elephants.
It's just crazy, man. What it can do, like the influence of like money and power.
Right. Like, I mean, with Tony, he starts off, wanting to take over the country, taking over this drug empire. But as soon as he does, he starts getting into drugs. He starts losing the smarts that got him there in the first place.
Yeah,
And,
never get high on your own supply.
Right, it's what Elvira says, and
Yeah.
he loses what got him there in the first place, so he can't maintain it. He winds up killing his best friend, watching his sister die, losing everything because he loses control of what got him there in the first place.
No, yeah, of course. Like, it's just weird how we just look at these movies and they become this staple in culture, and we start to idolize them. And like, I think of like something like Menace to Society or like Boys in the Hood.
Mm-hmm.
Or like Blood In, Blood Out, man. Like, how many Mexicans I know like who love Blood In, Blood Out, and it's just like we're supposed to learn something from it, not become those characters,
Yeah.
But in some weird way, we just embody the negatives sometimes of them,
I mean, you could make the argument that just filmmaking or any visual,
the influence,
it's just too powerful. It just takes you in. It just, I mean, you could extend this argument out to like romantic comedies and people having this
expectations of love and stuff,
right?
Yeah,
and relationships.
Oof, it's deadly, man.
I know. I mean, like, at the same time, we're not taught how we should critique these sorts of work because we're just sort of. At the same time, movies are treated as like sort of like lightweight entertainment.
I know.
It doesn't really matter, but it turns out it gets deep into our brains.
It feels like the influence of movies now has kind of dwindled because of like the internet and what's the evolution of the internet. But like back then, like when Scarface came out, like this movie was like rated X, right? It was like,
at first they had to make cuts.
Yeah, it was like rated X because of the chainsaw scene and like. And the constant violence and drug use and the use of the F word, and it's just like nobody had really seen a movie like this, know. From what I've heard from like people who saw it in the theaters,
Right. I mean, like before this, like 10 years before this got made, there was like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but these are small movies.
It's a low budget.
In like in like a genre like horror that gets put in like this.
It's like a
box.
campy side, yeah.
Yeah, and like when something big and mainstream with a big star like Al Pacino.
Yeah.
Gets made, Brian De Palma, who was successful. Yeah. Like his last movie before this, Blowout, didn't make any money.
Yeah. Travolta, yeah.
Yeah, and it's too bad. It's a great movie. But anyway, he wanted to make a big commercial picture. That's what he said. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what's more commercial than like Al Pacino in a gangster movie? Yeah. And so this kind of movie got a lot of attention you wouldn't otherwise get, making something this violent and outlandish. Yeah. And I guess you could use the word bolder. Yeah, what you just said about outlandish and the violence and like, it's such a big mainstream movie, but also like the political side of it too. Just the way the film opens up with that little like prologue. Yeah, little epigraph is just. Like, and it's like Castro saying like, we're gonna get rid of whoever does not want to stay here. Mm-hmm. Leading to the mass exodus. Of Cuba. I was reading a little bit about the Cuban response. Okay, what was that like? Well, from what I read, it's like most, like Cuban rights, Cuban cultural groups were very offended, and they didn't want this movie to be released. And there was protests. I can see why. Yeah. A lot of protests, a lot of petitions were passed around. Yeah. And there even is, I don't know if you watch until the end of the credits, but there's like a little note at the end that says this movie only represents a small subset. That's right. Now I remember. Yeah. And does not mean to represent the entirety of the Cuban community. Yeah. And they were forced to put that at the end. Yeah. Just because there was such an outcry to what this movie was about. But the thing is that, in my opinion at least, is that this movie is so, like we've been saying, so out there, so big, so cartoon-like. It can't even really be taken as a realistic portrayal of Cuban immigrants. It's just something that's more symbolic, and like I said before, Brechtian, that's meant to use Tony and drug dealing as it's like a catalyst kind of as more of an exploration of the American dream and the way what it's the lengths we'll go to and what we actually see as the American dream, which is money, power, and women. I mean, it's just strange, man, because it feels like this movie means so much to the Latino community, and like it just man, the impact of this movie that it's had on Latinos, it's just like, you kind of take it for granted now, and it's very tough to make a movie about a certain group of people, especially nowadays. It feels like you got to have like sort of like everything,
set to a certain criteria. It's got to be like, I was thinking like, can this movie be made now? And I'm like, there's no way this movie can be made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for a lot of reasons. Also, because there's no one like Al Pacino around. We have a lot of chiseled jaws and six packs.
Yeah,
but no one who can take on a character like Tony
And I just
Montana.
don't think people would allow a white Italian guy nowadays to play a Cuban. I just don't think it would fly now.
Probably, but yeah, that would be the lesser issue. I think it's more about like these kinds of movies aren't really popular now.
No, because I think they faded out. As we've said with like Hard Boiled, violence, like our understanding of violence nowadays is completely different.
In a way, maybe.
Like nowadays, like I don't like that chainsaw scene. Okay, let's take for example the chainsaw scene in the hotel when Tony's sent to go get the drugs.
Right? This was a big deal back then. Kurt Vonnegut walked out.
Yeah.
At the premiere.
No, yeah, I know somebody that saw this in the movie theater, and they were like 13 or 14. And they were saying like how powerful that scene was, and how violent it was, and how they never seen anything like that on the big screen.
I think that scene is so well shot.
Oh, dude, I was about to bring that up. Just like the way it's cut together and the way De Palma films it, the close up of Angel, right, that character, and you just see the chainsaw going,
like his eyes getting bloody.
Yeah, and then Tony's looking away, and he has the chain link around his is it a chain link? What is that? It's like a chain. They're strangling with a chain. And he has that around his neck, and he can't even watch. He has to turn away. Yeah. But he's behind the shower curtain. Right. And they intercut that with Manny trying to pick up a white girl on the street.
The thing I love that De Palma does in that scene is that he zooms into the blinds. He zooms out, and the crane down to the car.
Dude, it's beautiful, man. That's one of my favorite shots.
Back up to the window. It zooms in. And then Tony's being tied up in Alan's cistern.
Yeah. And then Chi-Chi's finally like, hey, Manny, man, let's go check on him, man.
Yeah. They've been gone a long time. We should probably go check on them.
Yeah.
And,
and then the dude who's cutting him up, I forgot his character's name, the dude with the chainsaw. He's like, no, the leg, huh?
Yeah. It's a real sadism. It's a real casualness to the violence.
It's just like, watching that scene is like, it's so I don't know, it's gut wrenching, and then it turns into this like mass shootout. And it's just like
the funny thing that tips people off if they haven't noticed to that point is that it's a big, not meant to be taken realistically movie. Is that Tony chases the guy downstairs and he shoots him in front of
all these like
24 senior citizens.
That's what I was about to say. All these old white people just enjoying their day,
like drinking. Martinis
and the way he shoots him too. The way he shoots him, like he just pulls out the pistol and he goes, "Hey, and then he just shoots him in the head. Right. And then that's it.
And and then just get out of there. And like they never get caught. There's like
I know.
How many witnesses? And because the movie's not about that. It doesn't matter.
I was thinking like nowadays, like cell phone cameras would be out and all this stuff.
Yeah, but even if it took place today, I don't think he would get caught as a character because it's not that kind of movie.
No.
Where he's gonna like get hunted down by the police.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so De Palma does. I guess it's not restrained even by his standards. It's just very. I was surprised now rewatching this movie for like the fourth time or something that he's just sort of very classical in his movements. A lot of cranes.
It's like a melodrama. It's weird
definitely.
The way he shoots it. Yeah, and the colors he chooses.
It's that sort of 80s bright, poppy, neon colors.
Yeah, it is.
And
it's like smooth talk.
Yeah, sort of like smooth talk. They're probably influenced by this movie. But he just does. He uses like a lot of long lenses. Yeah, a lot of zoom ins. A lot of slow dolly shots.
It's a very grainy movie too. When
definitely grainy. I want to talk about that. John Alonzo,
killing it, man.
Yeah,
behind the camera.
Mexican American cinematographer.
Yeah.
Before this, had done Chinatown.
Yeah.
A bunch of other great 70s movies.
Yeah, reminded me of Chinatown a lot.
Yeah, but this is a lot dirtier looking, grimy, maybe.
Oh yeah, it looks nasty.
And the grain you mentioned, I love the grain because you don't see anything like that anymore anywhere.
No, it's super grainy. Yeah. Even the club scenes when they're inside, like it's like beautiful and poppy and like everything's well staged, but I just noticed the grain. I was like, man, there's so much grain in this.
And it's I think I saw it on Netflix, so I think it wasn't as much grain as I remember it seeing with, but
Yeah.
Maybe got cleaned up a bit, but still, it's pretty
Maybe.
grainy. And I just love that look because it looks textural. It looks like you can
It does.
touch it
You can, yeah.
and feel it. And
There's
not
a definite feel, yeah.
I've like complained before about how digital just looks so clean and
Yeah.
lightweight now that it doesn't feel like anything.
It's convenient, but at the same time, you do lose something.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
lose something.
you can do great stuff with digital cameras, as in Zodiac,
Oh yeah.
Lady Bird. It's cinematography. Yeah, you can feel like it has texture. You can feel it. Like Lady Bird, especially for some reason. I keep bringing it up, but it has a lot of grain.
Or like, yeah, I was thinking of like Steve McQueen's movies too, for some reason.
Yeah, there's a lot of filmmakers that can do great stuff with digital, and it doesn't always have to be that clean.
Yeah.
Sort of, it just doesn't feel like much to the eye.
No, like, yeah, and you brought up the cinematography, also the sound design in this movie.
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
Incredible.
Mm-hmm.
One specific scene I keep thinking about in terms of sound design is "Say Goodnight to the Bad Guy" sequence, when they're all having dinner. Tony is coked out of his mind, probably on a Quaalude. Elvira, is it Elvira, right? Is it Elvira or Elvira? Elvira, yeah. She's like on a Quaalude, probably coked out. Stephen Bauer's just there. Manny's just taking it all in, trying to diffuse the situation. But like in that scene, though, like the sound design of the surrounding, like supporting characters, the background actors, you can hear them. You're like, oh, what's going on? What's happening over there? You know,
can hear like the plates and the
forks
tinkering.
Yeah, and it's so creepy, that scene, and it's just like that's the embodiment of like the downside of the American dream. Right? You're sitting there and you're like, and he even says it. He's like, is this it?
Yeah, you just eat and do drugs and drink.
Yeah.
Then you get old and fat. What do you have then?
You go, what is this, man? Is this what it's all it's for, man? You know that?
Yeah. That's part of it too that leads to his downfall. It's just like he got everything he wanted.
Yeah.
It's not anything.
No, the realization of the American dream. It's just you got to have a plan. You got to have expectations too, I guess, right?
Right.
And he's also looking at a heavy jail sentence too at that point.
Yeah, it's
things working against him.
Yeah.
And that scene when he gets caught with the dollar bills by those undercovers, he says, "All I'm doing is washing money, man. This is what the country was founded on. Why am I going to jail?"
And like he says later, what's capitalism is getting fucked or something like that. And that's what it is. You're just fucking over other people.
Yeah. And he realizes this, and it's just...
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So he realizes this, and I think it adds on to like the emotional stress and downfall of him. And how do you feel about his relationship with the sister? How do you perceive that nowadays?
Well, yeah, De Palma, being the perv he is, I don't know if it was him or Oliver Stone that added that subtext to his relationship with his sister, but it makes sense within the cultural way of a brother and sister relating to each other. Where like we saw last week in Seven Beauties, there has to be like this sort of protection, sort of this.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Not even like brotherly, but like more like a fatherly guarding of virginity, like some sort of thing in the Middle Ages.
It's really profound in the Latin community too.
Yeah,
that's something that's like still there. I feel
that you have to like feel like you have to like protect your sister from men.
Yeah,
and it really causes the rift between him and Manny and him and Gina.
Yeah.
The first time in the club where he follows Gina into the bathroom with this guy. And
I love the way that scene is shot too.
Whole thing, yeah.
I mean that scene between, Tony and Gina when he catches her in the bathroom, and like everybody's cleared out except Manny, and he's watching it. That feels like an actor's workshop or something between them. The way that it feels, like it doesn't feel like a scene. It feels like you're in there with them. Especially the way he just like he grabs her by the hair and then he slaps her in the end. It just felt so real,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just like you said, it's melodrama. It's very much it's every emotion is heightened to like a huge operatic extent, and I like that a lot. I wish movies were less restrained emotionally, because it's always much more I don't know, like I always like the most moments where I just feel more alive. It's just like moments where I see people actually having big emotions.
For sure.
And it feels nice because it always seems like people are so restrained and held back, especially now, where people feel like they have to be operating on some like perfect moral, emotional level.
Yeah.
Where they can't do one thing wrong or can't say one. It just feels like people are holding back too much now.
I know. It does feel like that. I'm trying to, yeah.
No, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm trying to think of a scene recently I saw that's like kind of has that same vibe.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really think of one. Maybe like The Wolf of Wall Street or something.
Yeah, right. Like the arguments between Jordan and his wife.
Yeah.
They have that, which is, yeah, like you said, I can't remember any recent movie that doesn't try to like just play it cool.
Yeah.
I also want to talk about, I wanted to go back to his sister.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, Tony winds up killing Manny. And it's like, it's almost comical, the reveal, like Gino tells him, oh, we got married yesterday.
The zoom?
Yeah.
It's like, honestly, that's like the perfect gif. Like, I don't know, that's like a good reaction. Yeah, but yeah, it's like it's comical.
Yeah. Because like even he shoots him twice, and then Gino's like, oh, we wanted to surprise you. And it's like, oh, you should have called me.
His face, though, like, just like when he sees Manny with his sister and his sister's at the top of the staircase and that realization.
Mm-hmm.
And like the synth, the doo, it's just,
like
like
the
so
very
dramatic.
sad.
Jesus. And he shoots Manny and I'm just like, great, dude. That's like your brother, man. Like,
exactly.
That's it.
And it's just, then there's like the last scene, which is, Gino comes into his office half naked with a gun.
I know.
Starts shooting at him.
Yeah, and then she starts to say like, "Make love to me" and all that stuff, and like,
because she got to the bottom of it, right? That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean that's what it feels like. Yeah,
he wants to have this like possession of her. That
like, yeah,
it's insane. It's just like this antiquated sort of. I have to protect you from any man who might want to not marry you.
Nobody
immediately.
will ever have you except me.
Yeah.
It's so strange to see that. Even when I saw it the first time, I was like, this is making me feel weird.
Me too.
It's like so uncomfortable.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's so uncomfortable. It
is.
And I'm just like, whoa, man.
And like his Tony's last words to her, he's just like sort of, he finally gets it at that point that he fucked up badly.
Yeah. I just love the way how this movie's written.
Mm-hmm.
I know at times the dialogue can be like cringy, but I mean, like, that's the era. That's the era, man. But like, I feel like this movie is so well written, like just the structure of the story, from beginning to end. Even like the last 45 minutes of this movie, the downfall of Tony.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the way like it's depicted, how it all goes downhill.
Yeah, it's a classic, epic rise and fall.
Epic rise and fall, yeah.
You see this over and over again throughout movies. It's just, it's very like, it's very gangster, sort of back from the 30s, sort of even before that, actual classical Greek tragedy where it's like, you see this man go to the top, achieve everything he wanted, but it turns out that's not really what he wanted.
No.
And thereupon he like has to like go down. He has to like.
What do you think you wanted?
Like we said before, like he even says it. Like, yeah, you want the women, you want the power, you want the money, but I also want to talk about Elvira's character.
Okay.
It's a very interesting part of the whole formula.
Yeah.
Is that it's funny that he tries to like spend the whole first half of the movie trying to seduce her.
He does.
She doesn't want anything to do with him.
No. What did she say? The help. Calls him the help.
Yeah, it's like if you were the last man
you're the
and we
last
were on a deserted
man.
Island.
She's like, I
would still not fuck you.
I'm not gonna fuck some guy that just came off a banana boat.
Yeah.
She has like all of these like little like not even little but like it's like the racism towards Tony and like Cubans and Latinos in this movie is so heavy-handed.
Yeah.
It's insane. Like you have people saying like Spix, banana boat, the help, just like things where I hear it nowadays and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah,
like,
but I don't think it's heavy-handed though, because if it's common still now,
that's true.
Must have been really common back then.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, like just from family and like just like the racism that Latinos would experience back then was so much more
definitely
like crude,
it was
open.
Yeah, it's much more out there and less.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was socially acceptable, but there wasn't the same amount of repercussions there is now.
I know, yeah.
And interesting thing with her is that the first time we're introduced to her, she's like in this long dress.
Yeah.
Looks expensive, and she gets in like this elevator that's.
She goes down.
And she's like a doll, right?
She is like a doll, yeah.
In like this little
and
box.
Tony's eyes.
Yeah, you see him watching her in the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Got Giorgio going with the sim. And the whole time, the only way he can relate to her is like as an object, as someone he wants to possess.
Yep.
And then when he kills Frank, he takes over his empire. He just tells her that she's his now.
Yeah.
And she like begrudgingly like packs up her things.
I know.
And she just takes it. She doesn't even say anything. Just like accepts.
Yeah. The night when he shoots Frank.
Yeah.
After the failed assassin attempt of Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's that beautiful shot where he's looking at the blimp from the window.
Right.
And it's like the world is yours, and she's there in the background packing up.
Right.
You know.
And as it turns out, she was nothing more than an object that you never see them consummate the relationship. Yeah. You never see them have sex or even kiss, right?
But, there's that moment where he also tells her, like, I want you to be the wife, my wife, and the mother of my children.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like a movie where he gets himself into situations that are just like he did not expect them to be what they were. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like he has this fantasy of what it's gonna be like.
Fantasy, the American dream.
And so he's like, if I get this,
the white wife,
right, the white blonde, the emblematic American, woman, then that'll be one more puzzle piece I can fill in.
Yeah.
But turns out she doesn't like him. He doesn't really like her. They don't fit together.
She's
just
it's
this
bizarre.
idea of what he should have.
It's very bizarre, that relationship. I don't know. Michelle Pfeiffer is amazing in this movie, though.
Yeah, it's like her first big role.
Right, yeah.
And
8 years before Batman Returns, so.
From what I read, Brian De Palma was really interested in the way she was costumed.
Oh, okay.
And her hairstyle and makeup, that he was almost obsessed with the idea. She tells the story about her having a bruise on one leg, and he sent her back to makeup to cover up the bruise.
Oh, really?
He just wanted her to be like this perfect ideal idea, this symbol, really, an object.
Yeah.
Because we don't really get to know anything about her. But that's the thing for Tony.
Yeah, you just know, like,
she's never more
Hancock.
Right. She's never more than an object, something he has to obtain and keep.
And I was just thinking about, like, her last name's Hancock, and like Tony can't even say Hancock. He's like, what? Hancock? You know what I mean? Baltimore. Yeah. Where's Baltimore? So yeah, he doesn't know what he's getting himself into, and it's just like, the expectations of when an immigrant comes to this country, it's like, this is what I want. This is what Americans.
Because again, I think it's the idea of him watching movies.
I was about to say that, yeah.
And De Palma, obviously, big fan of Hitchcock, to say the least.
Yeah.
The classic Grace Kelly blonde woman.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Sort of like a femme fatale, not really though in this case.
Yeah.
But just sort of this symbol of what a man has to be considered American and a success.
That's true. At the time, I mean, like, that was the epitome of beauty. Someone like Michelle Pfeiffer, where it's like slender, stylish, beautiful skin, light eyes, And yeah, you brought up Hitchcock. Funny you bring that up. How about the UN scene, huh? When they have to tail that guy. That's like a pure Hitchcock moment right there.
Definitely. There's a lot of that in this movie. Obviously, it's De Palma, but that scene reveals Tony's reluctance, refusal to kill anyone who's innocent, anyone who's not really in the game.
Yeah, it's the code.
Yeah, the code.
It's by the code, the honor.
And
no kids.
Yeah, you don't see that anymore, obviously.
No.
Drug cartels will kill anybody. Anybody. It doesn't matter who.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like this last, again, I think it comes from the old classic Hollywood style of movie making, where the gangsters had a code of what they wouldn't do. Code of honor,
something. It's kind of like the opposite of Sicario. Remember when the drug lord boss tells Benicio del Toro it's just business?
Right.
And
that's what Sosa tells Tony after he tell me he didn't do the hit, that this is what it is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That the kids and wife were there. He had a job to get done, and it should have gotten done anyway, but Tony refuses.
Tony was like, no way, no kids, man.
Yeah.
Ends up shooting him. Man, what's that actor's name that he
Margolis.
There you go.
Before Breaking Bad.
And Ace Ventura.
His accent's better in this one than Breaking Bad.
I love him in Ace Ventura, though.
I don't remember. Sorry.
He plays the landlord. He plays Ace Ventura's landlord. I'm sorry. But
okay.
Yeah, he does. But anyway. And no, yeah, I mean, I would say another thing about this movie, the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Giorgio killing it on the synth.
Giorgio.
How about that, huh? Especially the opening.
It's like a funeral dirge, sort of like a funeral song, and you're like leading them, like you're
right.
like it's foreshadowing for what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
this
such an
and
epic soundtrack.
Boogie Nights starts with a circus theme, sort of like a Fellini movie almost. And it's just sort of this not subconscious. You're just hinting at the idea that this isn't the kind of movie you're expecting when you saw the trailer.
No, yeah, I mean, that's just the opening sounds of this movie. You know, you have the opening track by Giorgio, and then you have the dialogue.
Yeah, you have the epigraph, which is like of 125,000 Cubans that came over, 25,000 had criminal records, which is like, it's a bit much. Yeah, they it's like jaywalked or something, and then they got a criminal record.
It's not that simple, but I know what you're saying. It felt like this was the beginning of Seven Beauties as well.
Yeah,
they had the same thing.
Like the same like historical archival footage.
Yeah,
where you're like setting up the history.
This is kind of like the opposite, though. That you actually kind of take. It's unlike Seven Beauties, where it's like this weird, ironic, comical take. With this one, you're glued to the screen. You're like, what's going on here? Like, how did I not know about this mass exodus of Cuba? I remember in high school, I used to know like this kid who actually grew up in Cuba.
Yeah.
And he came over like when he was 8 or 9 or something, and he was just talking about how like he would get mad at other kids when he would tell them like he would say, "I'm Cuban," and then like some kids would be like, "Oh, like Tony Montana," and he would get irritated. He would be like, not every Cuban is Scarface,
that's gonna happen with any, like people would call me Harry Potter.
Harry Potter,
because I had glasses and I was white.
Oh no!
And that's not the same comparison. I'm just that's to be funny. But anyway, I can imagine how annoying it is to be Cuban. And have the first thing associated with you to be Al Pacino.
And it's just one of those things where this movie, like the like impact of culture and everything, and like the riffs, it created the ripples. I should say it created. And let's get to the shootout scene, because I think that's one of the like most beautiful, like put together action scenes I've seen. Like, just like the choices by De Palma, the single shot of Tony going like, "Say hello to my little friend," like that, and just like the intercuts of the dudes running up, you know what I mean, taking shots, and like the explosions, and just the style of the gun. The M16 with a rocket launcher like beneath it, like it felt like that was like a map for like Grand Theft Auto or something. It felt
obviously like this movie's linked with Vice City.
Oh, of course, yeah. Of course,
obviously, because of the same.
Yeah, I mean, one of the final missions in Grand Theft Auto Vice City is an exact replica of the Scarface scene where you're defending your house and you're like shooting all these dudes.
Right. I don't think I would like that game as much if it wasn't so like linked with Scarface.
I know, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think this year, I've just grown to love De Palma. Before I loved a few of his movies.
Me too. Yeah.
And now I just sort of really appreciate what he does with the camera.
It's funny because I would not have noticed any of what you were saying like a year ago, and then you brought it up to me like a body double, even in Scarface as well, like where I noticed all these little things.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, De Palma's like underappreciated, dude.
Definitely. Like, it's too bad. So yeah, his kind of movies aren't made anywhere now.
I know.
It's sad.
It's kind of weird. It's I don't know. I just chalked it up to like different time, different place, man. Those guys had those influences of like Hitchcock, Cirque, you know, like Samuel Fuller, just like all these like variety of influences. Whereas now, like we're looking up towards like, I don't know, like younger filmmakers. I assume like our generation, we're looking up to like maybe like Tarantino. You know, maybe we're looking up to somebody like I can't even think of any other film director for some reason, but like hopefully we're still looking up to those classic ones.
I mean, it's hopefully, yeah. I mean, it seems like a lot of filmmakers our age, we're not that old.
No, we're not.
So like most of the filmmakers in our generation haven't made movies yet. They're just
It's true, man.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it would be like Paul Thomas Anderson.
PTA, yeah, for sure.
You said Tarantino, maybe like
Yeah.
a second wave of Tarantino imitators.
I thought of, you know, I brought up Tarantino because I always hear people bring up Tarantino, like our generation, like how they think. And this is not to say in a negative way or anything, but I always hear like people's favorite movies are like Pulp Fiction, and I'm just like, Pulp Fiction's good, man, but it just feels like there's other ones I would choose over it.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
just like put Jackie Brown in there, which I think is like,
I think Jackie Brown's one of his like most underappreciated movies.
yeah, it's
man.
like one of his best. It's like top 3.
It's
At
De
least.
Niro, dude, and Bridget Fonda. It's just
De Niro,
beautiful,
Samuel
man.
Jackson. Just like
yeah.
Anyway, we're straying from the point. Yeah, hopefully, I mean, at least with us, if we ever get to make anything, it'll be somewhat influenced by De Palma, just in terms of the camera movement that is so graceful and doesn't like pull you out of the movie. It's
No,
just,
it doesn't.
He knows how to guide your eye in a way that's
He
very
does. Yeah, that's why I brought up the shootout scene.
unintrusive. Yeah.
It feels like that thing is so put together, like perfectly
Mm-hmm.
editing wise. There's no like huge amount of jump cuts. There's no like quick cutting. Like I think if they were done nowadays, it would be like so fast.
It'd be a
and
mess.
you would notice.
Yeah.
You'd be like, "What the hell's going on here?"
It would be a blur and you would get bored. You would
Yeah.
just disengage. And with De Palma does it, again, like with Hard Boiled John Woo, he knows how to let you constantly remember where the characters are, what the stakes are,
Yeah.
and at the same time build suspense as to whether or not the main
And not,
guy is
and
going
not
to
like,
live or
and,
not.
and not like unintentionally insulting your audience, not guiding the audience by hand.
Yeah.
That's a big one. I feel like you should just do what you feel and just like go with the flow, and then the audience will come up. Like it feels like now everything has to be spoon fed to an audience. Everything
Yeah.
has to be so dumbed down, and I'm just like, just do what you want, man, and then let the audience catch up with you, maybe, you know?
Yeah, it's all about that. But like again, it's like if studio executives were intrusive back then, imagine now we're just like constant barrage of notes and audience
Yeah,
testing,
I know.
algorithms.
Ooh.
Is
I
this
told
gonna
you,
work?
I told
Is
you
this gonna
we're
work?
nearing that algorithm where they put it into a program and
Yeah.
it's gonna spit out what the movie should be down to like who the editor will be, you know?
I mean, like the nightmare is that eventually, like algorithms will write the scripts. The entire movie will be digitally shot.
with animated actors, but they look real.
Maybe. Anyway, I got off track.
No, it's okay. I know what you're saying.
I hopefully that De Palma has a resurgence somehow. Even
Maybe.
though he seems like he would be canceled like an instant if like he made any of his movies in the 80s
another
came
thing,
out.
man. That's another thing about his movies. They're not pretty. They're not politically correct. They
Right.
make you think about things. They make you think about gender, sex, the role of femininity in culture. You know, like Carlito's Way too. Like Carlito's Way is probably one of the best. Another great gangster movie. You know, not as impactful as Scarface, but just as intriguing. Just as like. If not, that movie has more of a heart, I think. Carlito's Way. It's got more soul in some weird way.
No, definitely. Yeah, I was thinking about that also, that his movies tend not to be so emotional in terms of character. They're just sort of
Yeah.
detached,
Yeah,
mostly in favor of the stylistic elements.
for sure.
But yeah, Carlito's Way, there's still some sort of emotional catharsis at the end when he dies that you
I
don't
know.
really get. Not even Scarface, really.
No, you don't. At the end of Scarface, when he dies, you're kind of just like, oh man, they shot him from the back, dude. You know,
Yeah.
like, and that's it. After he's screaming like all these bad words, like, you know,
Yeah.
whores and all those terrible.
Well, no,
words.
he's like not even that. He's just like
I'm still
your
standing.
bullets can't do anything.
I'm still
to me.
standing.
Like,
I'm still standing.
yeah,
Let's
it's
go.
like-
You know.
the guy gets him from behind.
Yeah. And then,
But
and then they do the freeze frame. That he's like laid out, you know.
Yeah, and then like it cranes away.
Yeah.
As all the hitmen start to leave.
Yeah.
Check on their dead friends.
Yeah. And then Giorgio Score comes in.
But yeah, you're right that whole sequence and many sequences in his entire body of work are just so perfectly planned.
Yeah.
And that it seems like I've listened to a podcast. Roger Deakins has a podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's pretty great. He has a lot of good people on there. But he talked about how the Coen brothers know exactly what shots they need, and they don't get anything else. They already have it edited in their heads.
Perfect.
And a lot of directors will just get everything they can and then decide how to put it together in the editing room. And it doesn't seem like De Palma really does that. He knows what he's going to get and how.
I feel what you just described, that's how I feel. Like in terms of like making movies, I hate coverage. I hate like, you know, we'll just film from all angles and put it together. I'm like, no, dude, let's have this organized and just go with what, you know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, and like Film a Screenmaker's just the same thing about Scorsese. He knows what he needs to get to make the scene work. And he's not just like, and Scorsese himself says it's at a certain point where you just gain so many angles, you're selecting, you're not directing.
Exactly.
You're just
and it feels like that's what filmmaking's become.
Definitely.
But that's an argument for a
I mean,
day.
especially for TV.
Oh yeah, TV's
for
different.
network TV, where you just
TV's
get every angle, so the head writer, the showrunner can put it together later.
I know.
And it seems like a lot of movies are put together that way now, where you just sort of try to cover yourself and not really have any definite plan of how you want the scene to work.
Definitely.
From terms of editing.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
But yeah, there's a lot to learn from De Palma, I think.
No, there is a ton to learn. Also from like Oliver Stone too. I think his writing, you know, and then him like directing like Salvador, another underappreciated movie I think he has with James Woods from the early 80s. That's another one where I don't know. I think Oliver Stone's another one of those directors where I look at and I'm like, yeah, I mean, the technicality may not be there and he might not be as like on the point as like De Palma, but his stories though are very like intriguing to me. You know, there's something that he taps into. There's something like so American about, kind of like Cameron Crowe, you know.
Yeah.
There's something so American about them you can't really ignore them. You know.
But these are filmmakers that are just
What do you think it is?
Well, it's
what was in the water back then that's not in there now?
I think it's still in there for some people.
Yeah.
I think it's a sort of identity, a sort of style and voice as filmmakers that even Oliver Stone had, that is just no one else could make that movie. It's a representation of who he is as an artist.
Yeah.
And I think you still have that today with, I don't know, at least not to be too broy, but the Safdie brothers, Paul Thomas Anderson, of course, Claire Denis. She's almost 80 now, but she's still
staying true.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, as directors get older, they sort of fade away in a way, but she's still making vibrant, powerful work that still speaks to what she has to say about whatever she's making a movie about. There's still directors out there that still like, I mean, it's hard to say that for American filmmaking, for at least for like worldwide.
Yeah.
There's still those kinds of filmmakers out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know if I'm just not being generous enough to think of any more American filmmakers.
No, it's escaping your mind. My question was what do you think it was for them though that like I've been trying to think about that. Like, what was it about that boomer generation and the one before that just they kind of just like created their own rules? I don't know how to describe it. They like took their influences and they like made things that you can't disregard. It's very strange.
What's this confluence of different elements in that? At that point, they were still under the influence of great filmmakers.
Yeah. Yeah, the guys that are looking up to are like they're the best.
Yeah, they're like, I mean, at least Hitchcock was still making movies into the 70s. And yeah, the money was there, the audiences were there.
Yeah.
But if the culture and society starts to devolve into trying to please at least the low common denominator,
you feel that that's what's happened?
It's part of it for sure. It's just that people are not willing to engage with art in the same way. Not even filmmaking, but just if you ever see people going to a museum, You just see people walking through galleries, taking selfies occasionally.
Oh.
You don't really see anyone stand there and look at a painting for longer than 1 minute.
I guess so.
You just sort of see them cruise by and go, oh, cool, yeah.
It's usually old people in museums.
Well, I see young people too, and they're not feeling it. They're trying to like think about like where are we gonna go for lunch later.
You're silly.
I'm not. It's true.
The voices.
But it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I try not to be cynical and bitter, but you know, it's hard with the way people are now. It's just hard.
I can see that. I can see that.
I know you feel the same way. You're just trying to be coy.
No, I'm not coy. You know
right
that
here.
I have. You know that I have let go
Have you?
a lot of stuff.
That's nice.
I have. I've gone Nikki Zen, as I call it. I've let go of a lot of things, and I'm moving
And
forward.
that's true. You have to move forward. You have to
Gotta move forward.
do
yeah.
your thing regardless of if there's an audience or not for it. You have to
Yeah.
speak your truth, as they say.
Exactly.
I forgot what we were talking about anyway.
I'm excited for this next one we're gonna do. Matrix.
Oh, Daddy Daycare. I was
Daddy Daycare.
gonna make a joke.
We should do Daddy Daycare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff Garlin. R.I.P.
Jeff Garland?
I'm kidding. He's not really dead.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. You scared me. All right. Well, everybody, that was another episode of Movies Are Dead. Check out Scarface from
Check out
1983
Scarface.
if you have not. And then, yeah, check out our other episodes too, the backlog. You know?
I hear Body Double's getting a lot of hits online, so
So check out Bob. Yeah, we did Body Double. Do Body Double. Do Vanilla Sky.
do a double feature of Scarface.
And Body Double.
Body
That's a
Double.
good double feed. I thought about doing that last night, but you know, check it out, guys.
Yeah, I got a
we
lot of
appreciate
options.
people looking at our stuff. So, all right,
Okay.
buddy. I think we wrap this
Bye.
one up. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye bye.
Great.